Alright, I'm back. Anyway, so where was I? I was telling the story that we had this 30-meter long rope to the submarine, and it was dragging the drum and the boat to the water. And now we were happy. We were like, we got this animal. We got a rope on it now. We were happy. We're going to fight this thing. We're going to bring in the legend. We're going to end the legend. That wasn't what we were thinking, but that is what it's all about, catching the biggest great white shark ever. So anyway, so the sub is pulling us through the water like that, and the boat's like going like this, slowly drifting along through the water. And it did this for maybe a minute and a half. Just pulled us through the water, and suddenly it stopped. And the drum and the boat just floated on the water like that, just dead on the water. And we were all watching it, we were all holding our breaths. We actually, what do you do? I mean, yes, we hooked up to a great white shark that probably weighs close to 5 tons. I would imagine 4 to 5 tons. It's a monster. Biggest thing I've ever seen in my life. Shark. Biggest great white shark. And it's panicking. I mean, this animal's fighting for its life, but we're not thinking in those terms. Because in those days, we didn't understand how intelligent these animals were. Next thing, we see the drum moving towards the boat. Straight towards the boat, and it's accelerating. And suddenly, that drum covers those 30 meters very quickly, and we're looking down, and we just see this animal coming up. And the shark is coming up at the boat at full speed. It's just racing at us, like full charge. And as it gets to us, for some reason, I don't know why, I thought it's going to smash into the boat. I thought it was going to bite the boat. For some reason, it goes just below the boat. It's charging us, and maybe I think it was probably testing us, because it was afraid of us, because we were attacking it. It was trying to test us to see our reaction. And that submarine just passed under the boat, and it actually bumped. You could feel its tail, and it's probably its dorsal fin bumped the boat. And went under the boat like that, straight under the boat, and then the drum hit the boat, boom, through the boat like that. And my father thought it was just going to continue running. And you got 4 or 5 tons of great white shark running that way at, I don't know, 15 knots or whatever it was doing. And that rope pulls tight, it could actually flip the boat probably. And we didn't know. So what my dad did, the motors are idling, he put both motors into gear, and he tried to accelerate. He tried to spin the boat around so that the rope wouldn't pull like this. He tried to spin the boat like that so the rope would pull like that. But what he didn't know, that as he did that, as he put it into gear and he started accelerating, the submarine had actually turned and was coming back at us. And it came back at us, and as the boat was going like that, we picked up the cable. We picked up that thick freaking winch cable in both propellers, and it was like, and the motors just stopped. They just seized like that, and the boat just went this jar in the boat, because the shark was still swimming, and the propellers wrapped those cables up, and the shark just kept, and suddenly, the boat just got jerked around. We all got ripped off our feet, fell over. Jeez, what the hell? And the shark kept swimming like that for a while, but she was so exhausted. And then she stopped. And then we all knew. I knew in my heart that we were in trouble. I really knew we were in trouble. And there was a silence that descended on that boat. This is deathly silence that we are in the shit. And there she was. I mean, there was our boat, a 20-foot boat, with at least a 7-meter great white shark right behind the boat. And I swear to God, that shark was as wide as the boat. She was like this. She was just a monster of a great white shark. And she just lay there, and she was like wallowing in the water. And my father trimmed the motors up and to see what was going on. And he ran to the back, and I ran with him. And we looked down, and it was just this horrible tangle of metal and propellers, and it's just a mess. And you got 4 or 5 tons of pressure on it. There's nothing we could do. Didn't have any tools, couldn't cut loose, nothing. And unfortunately, it was this thick cable. And so we sat there, we didn't know what to do, and we were still trying to decide. And she lay there for maybe a minute behind the boat, just wallowing. And next thing, she decided to kill us. The boat was attacking her. The boat was her enemy. The boat was trying to kill her, and she was going to kill that boat before it killed her. And she just came at us. Her jaws opened like this. And she rushed in into the back of the boat. She just rushed in, and she grabbed on the back of the boat, and she bit as hard as she could, and she shook that big head of hers, and her teeth shattered, and it was all bloody in her mouth. I mean, it was so frightening. And she grabbed the boat and she ripped and ripped and ripped, and then she backed off and she came in again. She grabbed one of the outboard motors and she grabbed the side and she rolled, and that whole motor just got twisted off its mount and like that. And then she came in again and she grabbed, and you could hear the glass fiber like and her teeth scraping. She was mad. She was mad, and all she wanted to do was get away. And then she backed off, and then she tried and swim, and as she swam this way, the cable pulled her back, and then she tried to swim this way, and the cable jerked her back like this. And in hindsight, of course, I can understand what was going on, but then I didn't. I was too afraid. It was frightening. And I remember, anyway, this happened several times, that she backed off and she lay in the water for 30 seconds, 40 seconds, a minute, and then there was an onslaught of attack, bite, smash. She just started smashing the boat up. But at one point, the boat was like that. How many minutes? 6 minutes. The boat was like that, and she's here. Okay? So imagine, let me show you. Here's the boat. Alright. That's the front of the boat. She's here. And there was about 2 meters of cable between the boat and her. The motors in it. And she started swimming like this. And as she swam like that, before that, let me just tell you. Before she did that, Devin, my best friend, freaking freaked out. Devin was like, he started screaming, we're going to die, I want to go home, we're going to die. And he stood there and he said, Craig, he started crying. He said, Craig, I'm wetting myself. And he peed himself completely. And my father said to him, Devin, get in the cabin. We had a small cabin on the front. Devin, just get in the cabin. And Devin dove into the cabin. So Devin's lying in the cabin like that, okay? And at that point, the shark decides to swim away. So it starts swimming, and as it starts swimming, it drags the boat with it. And eventually the boat is against its body. And how I know it was 7 meters long? Because the cable wrapped around like that, and her nose was by the stern, just past the stern or by the stern, I can't remember exactly. But her tail, I kid you not, the tail was at least a meter past the bow of that boat. She was so big. I mean, and she started swimming like that. But when she felt the boat come against her body like that, she started rolling and thrashing, and she started going crazy. And she tried to dive, and as she dove like that, her tail came up and smashed the side of the cabin. And Devin obviously came shooting out the cabin he just came shooting out like a rocket. But she dove like that, and she actually got some traction. So she got some traction even in an exhausted state, and she started swimming. And as she started swimming, she started pulling the boat down like that. And the water just cascaded over the transom. So water was coming onto the deck. And eventually, we were standing in more than ankle deep water. I mean, the water was halfway up her legs on the deck. And she just kept swimming. And obviously, the more water that came onto the deck, the more, the less buoyancy we had. And that much of the outboard engines was sticking out the water. And she swam and swam like that. And the boat started wallowing, and that's when we really got afraid. At that point, I remember clearly, I looked towards shore, and I remember thinking, I'm not going to see my mother again. I'm not going to see her again. And that's how frightening it was. Jaws, that's a movie. This was the real shit. So she swam like that, and eventually it came up. Boom, she came up again. And then she just started attacking the boat. And at that point, my father got onto the radio. And he put out a mayday. He said, Mayday, Mayday, and closest boat. And a boat that was not too far from us, maybe, 2 miles from us. They responded, and they said, what's the problem? And my father couldn't even explain. He couldn't say we've been attacked. He said, listen, just get your asses over here now. We're in serious trouble. We need help right now. And they said, where are you? And my dad said, we're right in front of the water tower. And they said, okay, we further out, we can see you. And they came rushing in, and you should have seen their faces, because when they arrived there, there was this 20-foot boat with a submarine destroying the boat, and they didn't know what to do. They just circled us, and my father said, "Just catch her." And I went to the front, and I was like, "It's bigger than the boat," and I threw them a rope, and they took the rope and they tied it on their boat, and they started towing us. And once they started pulling us forward, then everything relaxed, because they were pulling us. It was them, us, and the submarine. They were pulling us to the water like that, back towards Gordons Bay. And after a few minutes, after 3, 4, 5 minutes, I don't know, I can't remember, we realized that we actually going to be okay. we're not going to die out there that day. The boat's not going to get flipped over. And yeah, they towed us. I can't remember how long, but they towed us for a way. But I think what happened with them towing us to the water, there was obviously a lot of oxygen from the boat and the propellers and stuff. And the sub just lay there, and she just got drawn through the water, and probably this water flowing through the gills and the oxygen revived her, because we went for maybe 10 minutes, I would imagine, 10 minutes, 15 minutes max, and both boats came to a halt, like, and we looked behind us, and the sub was just rolling like this, just rolling, like thrashing and rolling, and boom, she was gone. Boat came up to the surface, and the submarine was gone. And I hate to think about the damage we did to that poor animal, but we pulled that hook in, and that big, thick hook, that monster hook wasn't completely straight. It was probably like that. So it was probably not a deep hook again. It was probably in the jaw, and it pulled out. I don't know, but I've often thought about the damage we did to that poor animal. And yeah, and she was gone. And but we encountered her again. We did encounter again, and I'll tell you that in another story.